Hey everyone, welcome to the Land Ranger, and we're going to do some cool stuff in this video. So this is something I've been really excited about. It is sort of a clickbaity title. I'm not going to build an antenna mast or anything for this, but I will be broadcasting my own cell service. And I'm using an open source project called Open5GS that is a 5G evolved core, essentially. And we're going to be kind of deploying that and creating our own SIM cards and then natting the cell network behind the FortiGate that routes the internet in my home so that we can browse the internet over LTE, basically. And I do plan to do this kind of in a part series just because of the complexity of this. Full disclosure, I am a network engineer, not a cell or telco engineer. So this is kind of new territory for me. Think it's going to go well. Obviously, we're going to hit some roadblocks. I'm going to try to not cut out anything that might be a problem or something that I'm trying to fix. I'm going to try to leave all of that in there because I want it to be real, and I want people to see like, hey, I could do this too. And again, you coming into this, if you're going to do this, you might want to have some Linux background. There's quite a bit of work on the Linux side, tons of guides on the internet. So, easy to learn or follow along with. But to give you some context, Open5GS is essentially a 5G core, and it allows you to kind of experiment with the cellular networks. And, Open5GS comes with all the things that you need to sort of run your own private LTE or PLTE network. It's the MMED, it's the SGWCD, it's the SMFD. It pretty much has everything inside of it that you need to kind of build your own private LTE in a lab environment, and of course, it does have some money involved. If you're going to be broadcasting this instead of using a simulator, then you're going to want to have a very capable SDR, and I bought a Chinese SDR called the B210 or Libre SDR, or Libre SDR, not sure what exactly. It's a clone. It's not the real Ettus, but it has all the main components and is compatible with the UHD drivers, which are the universal drivers that are used for this. So I'm just going to kind of show the process. I'm not going to show my face or anything, just kind of show everything that I'm doing. What you're looking at on the screen right now is actually a topology of my home network, and of course this is going to change. It's kind of rudimentary right now. There's not a lot going on here. This is going to be hanging off of an Extreme switch on a Lenovo box, and of course it's using VMware as its hypervisor. So the NAT device in the network is the FortiGate, but the Ubuntu box will also be doing the natting or masquerading for the cellular network, or the UEs. I'm also going to put a key terms page probably as well on here, just that way everyone knows kind of what we're doing, the things we need to be aware of. And, if you see anything that needs corrected, feel free to correct me in the comments. Again, this is the first time I've ever done something like this. So it's kind of out of my comfort zone, but it's pretty sweet that all this stuff is kind of available to the community, and it's entirely community driven. And mostly in this video that you're watching, we're just going to be installing the Open5GS core along with all the prerequisites that are necessary for it to operate. And in the next series, we will do, hopefully by then I'll have my actual SDR, because I don't have it yet. I tried a Ruckus, could not get it working. I was like, you know what, I'm going to just get the B210 because the quick start guide follows along with the B210. So even though it's a clone, it is compatible with the UHD. So I don't see any problems with it, and I'm hoping it doesn't get caught in customs, but here we are. But yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and pause here real quick, and I'm going to put up a page that some things that I've learned that kind of shows all the components that are part of the Open5GS core, or 5G's core, or what have you. So all these terms here, like MME, SGWC, SMF, AMF, UPF, and HSS, and all these things you've probably never heard of, especially if you're doing Cisco or something, if you're trying to follow along with the Cisco path in school or what have you. But yeah, you don't actually know all these terms because it's not your typical networking terms. So to give you some context, the MME is actually what manages the mobility and the session states, basically for the UEs. And the UE is the user equipment. And in this case, a UE is going to be an iPhone 14 Pro. That's what I'm going to be using as my user equipment. The SGWC and the SGWU, those handle the control and user planes. So like for routing data between your devices and the core network. The AMF is what manages and the access for the mobility connections. So it's similar to the MME, but that's typically used in 5G. This series is going to be using band 3. So I'm not sure I'm going to kind of touch 5G yet. I'm not sure if it's going to be compatible, but we're going to try. The UPF is what routes and forwards user data. So that, it's kind of like the internet. And the HSS is what stores the subscriber information. And that's for like facilitating authentication and server authorization. The PCRF is what enforces QoS policies and things like that. The NRF is what tracks and records available network functions, kind of like discovery. Think of it like similar to LLDP, but not really. SCP is what ensures efficient communication between network functions. So, back and forth between the control plane. AUSF is what authenticates devices using the stored credentials, and I'm hoping we don't run into any SUCCI issues, but I'm going to be trying to create an eSIM with that profile for A and B. And of course, in the next episode, we'll be going over that. I'll be glad to kind of go into detail about how that works. There are services out there to do eSIM. I'm going to try eSIM first, and then I'm going to go ahead and buy a physical SIM. But we'll just get there at some point. And then, of course, the rest of the terminology is kind of self-explanatory. So, hopefully you can continue to follow along. But, again, so what you're seeing here is kind of a thrown together a little topology of how this works, and this will change throughout the series of the video. As a matter of fact, I've already filmed a little more of this, and it's changed significantly since then. But for right now, it'll suffice. It kind of gets the idea across. So, just installing some Python here so that we can run the UHD driver installer. Just making sure it's installed. Also installing OpenSSH. Have to modify the SSH configuration here so we can allow root login, because we did not have that. Didn't feel like finding it to comment it out, so I just typed it right here. A little lazy sometimes. Of course, I'm using Royal TS. It's a very great software for SSH and so on and so forth. I know that's probably way too much in one video, but yeah, I mean, like I said, this is going to be a several-parter, so just here we're adding the repo for the UHD drivers. Then we go ahead and start downloading those. So we're running that Python script now. Now we're running the srsRAN. That's our radio access network. So that's what's going to be directly communicating with the B210 SDR. Just going to go ahead and compile all that. probably need to skip this. Think the box is just not fast enough to feed my ADHD. Needs more CPU cores. Now we're installing the database. This is for the subscriber information. I did give this VM 256 gigs of storage. I don't ever foresee me needing more than that, but, you know. Just adding the Open5GS repo. Once we get that complete, we should be able to just go ahead and proceed installing Open5GS. Of course, we still need to install the web server, the web GUI. And I'll post a link to the quick start guide that they provide here in the description, since it's easy to follow. Of course, there were a few things that I ended up running into. Noticed that I started seeing DNS issues. Just installing Node right now. This is when I ran into DNS issues, and I'm like, really? Can't resolve. It's always DNS. Never fails. Struggling with these DNS issues. Actually not sure what I was doing here installing NVM, but I think I got fed up with the DNS issues and started fixing things. Keep forgetting ping 4 is not part of Windows. You have to use a flag. On Mac, it's not a flag. It's literally just ping 4. and with, other Linux distros, but yes. Installing the certificate authority certificates, which I assume, the article doesn't really specify, but I assume that that's part of the SUCCI profiles. Profiles A and B, I don't know that 100%. Not overly concerned with that because I can always do physical SIM. Unfortunately, iOS does not allow you to use a null SUCCI profile. It's an Apple thing, so good news is I have an Android as a backup, so I don't have to worry about that too much. Now we're installing the web UI. It does provide a default username and password. I actually did not see that at first. I was like, oh, I don't have an account, so... I was following the guide to see what services it created, and I'm like, okay, the MME is part of the services, but I don't see it. Of course, that is really important. So I kind of was reading through things at this point and was a little bit lost. I wanted to see if the web GUI was at least running. And of course we didn't see anything, but I didn't realize it was using a different port. Because I seen all the services running, so... I totally skipped past the port there. Luckily, the setup wasn't too terribly bad. It was a little bit complex, but it wasn't so complex that I just didn't understand anything. There were a few gotchas here and there, but overall, pretty straightforward. They probably need to update their quick start article because some things had changed. Most notably, the web UI did not want to install from that repo, but I finally got that working and found the port as well for the web GUI. Hey, look at that. I'm like, dang it, I can't get in with this password. There we go. So yeah, now we have the web GUI and all the other important components needed for this to function. In the next episode, we'll be working on configuring a subscriber and the subscriber's eSIM. Of course, there's a few other things that we need to work on as well, which will be hopefully at that point at least getting the B210 and getting it set up as well and setting it up in srsRAN. But that's it. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next episode.